Yes, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us for our latest INC preview show. My name is Carl Bainbridge, and joining me as ever is Mr. Tim Close.
Hello, how do?
Unfortunately, no Max Grant today. Unfortunately, he has been a victim of the weather. It's fair to say, Tim, it has been freezing recently.
It has. It's been horrendous. I've been struggling to get around my own training and everything else, but the show must all go on, mustn't it?
Certainly so. Of people in America, they've been talking about all this big freeze which is happening. You should be looking it over in the UK as well. It's been absolutely frozen recently, hasn't it?
And South's even had it worse than us.
Yes, we're lucky up here in the northeast. And we're also lucky as well because we have got our first pay-per-view of 2019 up on the road, UFC 234 taking place all the way over in Melbourne, Australia at the Laver Arena, which I believe just over a week ago hosted the Australian Open. So
right.
Tennis connecting to mixed martial arts, who would have thought it?
Exactly, and I bet the weather's better over there as well.
Certainly so. It gives us a chance to talk about some of these Australian cards as well, because obviously the UFC likes to expand its profile, and Australia has been a big go-to place for the UFC recently. Obviously, 193 holds the record for the biggest attendance ever. I think it was something like 56,000 people for that event.
I think it's a good thing, you know, and I mean, a lot of us English, and I don't know about the Americans as much, sometimes you go on the fight card and may for one don't know a lot of them, but they'll be well known in Australia, and this is their chance to shine. Even if they put 10 of the Australians on and they only get one superstar out of it, you know what I mean? They have to test it, you know. And they obviously, for the UFC, for financial reasons and other reasons, obviously it's working in Australia. They keep going back.
I think when you look at it with this card though, I think that obviously you've got to have a bit of local interest there, but I think there is a level to that. And I think one of the issues I felt with 234, and a lot of other people on the internet as well, is there's a bit too much. It's a bit too local centric.
It is.
Yes, you've got the big main event.
It is. I totally agree. It's definitely that. The chance there probably has, you know, there'll be someone there sat there business wise and go, this will still be a sellout. We've got it. Australia's not going to have a fight card as good as this, so we can do it. However, because this is a main event, a main show on the UFC, I think they should have maybe put another world-class fighter on there. Maybe they've thought Anderson was the person to do that. I suppose, you know, they've got probably the greatest of all time fighting there, so that's maybe took the sting off it a little bit. But maybe another fight into the main card would have been a bit better. I
mean, if they've got someone like, say, even someone like Tai Tuivasa, got him, Tibura or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, obviously it'll work for them still. You know what I mean? And like I say, people of Australia, this will be the one they want to go to, you know. But they don't have to attract people from all over, like I say, as long as they get the sellout in Australia. But it's just for us watching. I think they could have maybe done a bit better for a fight card.
And I think the other factor as well is you've got a lot of fighters who are based over in North America, so asking them to commit to a fight camp halfway around the world is a big ask. You can imagine there's a lot of people.
There is, yes, that's true. So, yeah, there's ins and outs to it all, isn't there?
Yeah. But we do have 235 just around the corner, and that is stacked right now.
Yeah, very good.
We'll focus on this card in just a few moments' time. Obviously, it has been, 5 or 6 weeks since we last got together.
Yes.
So we need to talk about some of the big stories which have been taking place over those past weeks.
And
we need to go back to December, UFC 232, and I think what everybody was talking about after that co-main.
Nunes. Cyborg. Nunes. Yes. It was a bit of a shock. Well, everyone says it was a shock, but you, isn't that right, Carl?
I actually called it. I didn't call how it would happen. I thought Nunes would be too fast, and I think that when you had somebody who had great technical striking in the way that Nunes does, that would overpower Cyborg's wild brawling.
But not as quick.
No. But what Nunes essentially did was Cyborg.
Yeah.
That's the way the Cyborg normally fights. And
is there going to be a rematch there?
I want there to be a rematch, personally. I think that I've always been of the belief that if you have a dominant, long-standing champion,
they get beat, they deserve an instant rematch.
They do. I mean,
generally they used to put them in contracts.
Yeah.
They used to put them in contracts. So you take that belt off someone, if the former champion is willing to have a rematch and want a rematch, which generally they are because they want the title back, they were generally the new champion's first title defense was meant to be against the former champion. That's how it used to be.
And I know that that clause was in Cyborg's contract when she fought Kunitskaya.
Right.
I don't know whether or not it was for the Nunes fight. But as mentioned before, I think that if you were, say, like whether it was Anderson Silva against Chris Weidman, or what should have happened with Aldo against McGregor. If you were a champion for a long time,
you should get it.
You should get that.
I
rematch.
believe that as well. I believe that. I think it'll come down to the former champion as well, which Cyborg will want. But I think former champion, if they turn around and say, "No, look, I've had my day. I don't want to fight," that's different. But if they want that instant rematch, then yes, I think they should get it. If this isn't an instant rematch on that, I think the fight will go ahead again. Though there will be a second fight.
Well, I certainly hope so. A lot of the rumours going around is that they're penciling in Nunes fighting Holly Holm at 237, which, if that fight happens, I would be less than pleased about. Obviously, for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Not only I personally want the Cyborg rematch, but I also think Holly doesn't deserve that.
Well, that's fair enough, yeah. Is Holly the only one willing to fight her?
Possibly. I mean, fighting a Brazilian in Brazil in the main event, that's a big ask for anybody.
It is.
But you never know. We still got plenty of months coming up. That fight hasn't even been finalised yet, so we don't know whether that can happen. The other big story was what happened in our first ESPN card of the year. Henry Cejudo fighting TJ Dillashaw, champion versus champion. Another big surprise as well.
It was a big surprise. Did he look the same, man?
I thought that wake up would drain TJ far too much, and we saw that in the 30 seconds of the fight. Yeah,
it's a shame. It was a shame. You know, I've had this for myself, and I think people put too much pressure on themselves with weight, and I don't think it's the be all of end all. You know what I mean? It was all the rage, and I think even with all these people behind you, like all these nutritionists and everything else, giving you the right supplements and telling you what you can and can't do, I still don't think. Yes, okay, do that to cut weight, but to then do it and go and fight a world class fighter is a total no really. But it happens. Some people can do it. Some people get lucky. Some people it goes back to it. But I'm sure that's what I'd be blaming.
Yeah. And I think the other big factor that's come from this though is I think it's really hampered a lot of the UFC's plans for both flyweight and bantamweight, because I think the UFC's idea was that TJ would beat Cejudo, and they would use that as an excuse to shut down flyweight.
Yes.
Obviously, you can't do that if your flyweight champion's just beating your bantamweight. And the other factor is now you've got Cejudo making a strong argument to say, I want TJ's belt at 135 now. So you've got to mess that division up.
Yeah. Is there much talk of the flyweight going?
There's been a lot of murmurings.
If they want it gone, they'll get rid of it though. Whether they can shut it down until... I don't know, the rooster's getting bigger, isn't it? Maybe that's the way of pulling it back a little bit, you know what I mean? Because I think they're always trying to cut and do that, so maybe just get rid of that division if there isn't as much interest there. They'll know where there's interest and where there's not.
Flyweights have nearly always been some of the lower drawing fight cards.
Yeah, we'll see, time will tell, but like I say, you've got a strong case there.
So we'll focus on to our 234 once again. Now, we mentioned before that there was inklings that there wasn't much star power and much quality on this card, and this can be really evident when you look at some of the prelims. Yeah. Anything there that stands out for you?
Nothing major. I think there are a lot of there are a lot of low weights, obviously, all of them really. Lightweight being the heaviest. So that it'll be exciting. They're all fairly matched. But there is not one fight on there that would make me tune in as I would like to say.
I think if I had to pick out two names to look forward to, you got Kai Kara France, who is, I think, made a very impressive debut when he fought at the Adelaide card back in December. Mm-hmm. Very exciting fighter, good striking, especially by flyweight standards. And Lando Venata, who is, in my opinion, he's sort of like the best kept secret when it comes to mixed martial arts, because this guy, you never know what he's going to give you. I mean, he's been in, I think, 4 straight Fight of the Nights. Very nearly beat Tony Ferguson on his short notice UFC debut.
Yeah, his only loss.
I think it was his first loss in the UFC. I think he's lost 2 more after that. But again, I mean, look at these knockout of McDessie at 206. Very entertaining fighter. Right.
Well, like I say, we'll see how it all goes. Interesting how they've kept well below weights for the prelims and everything, isn't it?
I think that's been a big trend recently.
Yeah.
I think they like to stack a lot of the prelims with lower weight fighters.
Mm-hmm. So do you feel that the heavier you are, the more chance they've gone to the main card?
I think so.
Obviously, depending level wise, you know what I mean. But a good level featherweight at the same good level light heavyweight, if you had to pick one to go on the main card, would you think the UFC prefer the heavier weight to go on the main card?
I think they would, yes. I think especially when you're doing the fight night cards as well, because I think there still is this prevalence that heavier weights are bigger crowd pullers.
Yeah, even though it did change for a moment before, because everyone was that's why obviously the emerged with WEC, because everyone had a rage for the lighter weights because they were so fast, and
WEC was amazing.
Yeah, and fluent with the fighting, and I think we got a bit of a stalemate with the heavyweights and the light heavy at one point, but they're maybe all coming back round now, and everyone you can't beat, I suppose, the heavier weights, can you?
I just think about last year's London card, where they were really struggling to get a British-centric main event, so they just thought, let's just get 2 big heavyweights, and they got Verdun versus Volkov in there, which wasn't really relevant to the British audience. A decent enough fight, though.
Yeah,
really enjoyed that.
Definitely.
So we move on to our main card. Now, we did mention before that a lot of the big Australian names, so the Tai Tuivasas, Tyson Pedros, the Megan Andersons, etc., weren't appearing on this card. But there is one Australian which is, and that is Jimmy the Brute Crute, 9-0 in the UFC. He will be opening the main card, going up against Smiling Sam Alvey. Now, Jimmy Crute made his debut on that Adelaide card up against Paul Craig.
Scotland's
Paul Craig, submitted him by Kimura quite late on in the fight. I'm not entirely sure how well I should judge that fight, because on the one hand, he beat Paul Craig at his bread and butter. Craig wanted to turn this into a submission match, and Crute still came out on top.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, it's a win over Paul Craig, who is arguably one of the lower level light heavyweights on the roster right now.
Definitely. I think it was probably a correct fight to make at the time, giving him his first UFC fight. He's never fought since then, which you're talking over a year, so I don't know why that is, whether it be injuries or improvements or whatever else, I don't know. I think the UFC sort of, not the word looking after him, but sensibly giving him fights. Paul Craig his first one, Sam his second fight. You know what I mean? They're not just chucking him in the deep end and expecting. He is 9-0. Maybe they are sort of looking out for him to think, is this lad going to be something special,
I mean, you can easily chuck a prospect into a big match far too early.
They do it all. I don't know who. I don't know, because you see your prospect there get what that there, and then you get some prospects looking after. I don't know if it's because who the manager is, who the team is behind them, if they think, right, hold him back and let's make him big eventually, or we don't care about him. If he wins this, he wins that. If he loses that.
I think a lot of it is possibly the UFC sort of trying to chuck everything at a wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they've been doing with a lot of, especially title fights recently.
Yeah.
We saw that with Darren Till. They started to get behind Darren Till, saw he's this big, charismatic Liverpudlian, threw him into that Woodley fight, which he just wasn't ready for.
No, that's it. But at the same time, you look at that and you think, if Till had fought someone lower and got beat,
you lose that moment.
Yeah, you lose that moment, so you sort of seize the moment. It's a bit of a catch-22, really, what you do. Really, you know what I mean? But no, I think they're looking after him. I think Jimmy will be happy with that fight. I think you need that type of fight to see what level you are on.
Yes.
He's on the main card in his country. I think he'd be happy with that.
And I think in someone in Sam Alvey, you've got that wily veteran that's going to test all of his skills.
Yes, I think definitely. I think Sam's not probably ever going to be getting cut soon. No. I think he is like a bit of a gatekeeper, as you call them. They come in and I think if you beat him, you pass the test to go on further. If you get beat off him, you're maybe out the door. Whether we'll do this with Jimmy, I don't know.
And I think the thing with Sam, which I think riles a lot of people, is he always seems to appear on these main cards, and as mentioned before, he's been with the company for a long time. He's always willing to take fights. He even took this one on short notice.
They'll love to see. He'll probably have a strong bond with the UFC, whoever he deals with, and someone reliable and what's loyal as him. They're going to look after him to compare with some, you know what I mean? Like I say, if they can rely on him to ring him and go, look, we've got a fight here, main event, can you do it? And he says, yes, they should appreciate that.
Oh, with that big, massive grin on his face as well.
Yeah, that's it.
We can't look over the fact, though, that Sam Alvey does have a lot of criticism for his style of fighting.
Yes. Like I say, he still gets the fights, he's still in the UFC. So I don't know where he's ranked at the minute, but...
He was briefly ranked in the top 15 in the light heavyweight rankings. Had a fight with Little Nog, and I think that sort of expose maybe this guy isn't worthy of having a ranking yet.
Yeah. Well, like I say, he's up there though, isn't he? He's there. And he's got a good record. 33 wins, 11 losses. That's not to be...
I mean, you can never mock anybody. If you're in the UFC, you have to be good enough to get there.
Of course you do.
Unless you're Punk.
What's the story with him at the minute? Is there anything else happening?
I think he did...
he did lose his second one, didn't he?
He lost his second fight.
0-2.
That's something you never would have thought would happen in the UFC. A pro wrestler fights a guy called Michael Jackson.
I know. I can't believe he got a second shot, to be honest with you. You know, but...
So we've got a great veteran versus prospect matchup with Crude versus Alvi. I do like a lot of things about Crude. I watched him when he was on the Contender Series, and I think he's 1-2s. He's great at throwing combinations, but like 1-2s...
He's got quite a few TKOs on his record.
Few TKOs on his record. Good 1-2 combinations. Likes to mix it into the body as well, throwing in a couple of kicks here and again. So he's not a headhunter, which I think maybe a lot of prospect fighters can sometimes be.
Yeah.
I've just got this feeling though that Alvi's that sort of veteran fighter that's just going to grind out a decision against him.
Yeah, I would tend to go with you, to be honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Jimmy was to get the win, rising to the occasion in Australia. But it's not a big ask, but it's a big enough ask for him to get this fight and get this win. I don't think it's an unrealistic task. I think it's a fair fight, but I think it might just be, he might just come up short for it.
I think so as well. I'm going to go Alvi decision.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you, Carl.
So we move on to fight number 2, and it's a fight as well which was actually put onto the main card on quite short notice, as has to be said. Originally, it was going to be Devontae Smith taking on Don Xiong Ma, a lightweight bout. For whatever reason, though, that has been changed, and now we have our token women's fight on the roster, which is Montana De La Rosa taking on Nadia Kassam. Kassam, of course, returning to flyweight after fighting her strawweight debut up against Alex Chambers in her first fight. Very similar fight to the first one in that we have the young Australian prospect, unbeaten record, taking on a veteran.
I've never seen a lot of Kassam. I think like one fight in the UFC, isn't it? I think the record was maybe padded again in the UFC, but it got her in the UFC. She's from the top Australian top team. This is probably too much of an ask for her, if I'm honest. But once again, it's 9 wins, 4 losses versus 5-0. It's pretty fair. You're in the UFC, you can't just be fighting nobodies. And like I say, it's nice to have it. I do appreciate putting a woman's fight on, the one fight on the main card. I think the part and parcel now of the UFC, isn't it?
I have no issue with the women's fight.
No, it's just the level.
Yes.
I don't think if the level's not there, you should be judged on your level. So if the level's not there, they shouldn't be on the main card because they're women.
Yeah.
If their level isn't good enough to be on the main card, then they should move over.
I totally agree, because I mean, if you looked at some of the women's fights from 2018, you had some good quality matchups there.
Yeah.
The thing is, if you looked at a match between the 14th ranked lightweight and the 14th and 15th ranked lightweights, that's a bit of a mouthful, and then the 14th and 15th ranked women's flyweights, the gulf in quality is going to be substantial.
Massive. You're talking Premier League conference.
Yeah.
Realistically, women have got some absolute fantastic, brilliant fighters, like scary.
Yes.
But you're talking top 5.
Yes.
On the divisions, you know what I mean? And this is where they sort of go back to the Holly Holm fight, and you know what I mean? They sometimes run out of opponents where you think, well, they're worthy, but who else is there? They haven't got, the UFC haven't got that head battering list of 10 fighters willing to fight the champion. They're like, well, this is the only person who will fight. So, and maybe is capable of fighting.
I remember watching Kassam's debut in the UFC, and a lot of people were making a big deal. Oh, she's got 4 first-round knockouts. She wins all of her fights in the first minute. If you actually look at the quality of her opponents, I mean, some of these girls have the 0-6 records.
Yeah. I mean, okay, look, I can say from both points. How can I put it really without being? You can only fight those being put in front of you. At the end of the day, when she was 1-0, 2-0, and she was fighting 0-0, fair enough. She only had 4 fights and she got in the UFC, so good enough on her. But this really is, she's in the deep end now. She's gone from a little pond to the sea now. You know what I mean? So, to be honest with you, I think I'll judge her more after this fight. Because, you know, she hasn't, when she has been fighting them 0-6 fighters, at least she hasn't been going the distance with them.
Yes.
She's finished them in the first round, so she has sort of taken care of them quite quickly. If she was fighting poorer fighters and she was having a struggle winning on split decisions, then you would tend to worry and think. But she's fighting how she got put in front of her. She's demolished them and put them away quickly. So, like I say, I think she'll be more judged and fairly more judged after this fight.
And I think she showed as well she can handle adversity in the Alex Chambers fight as well, because she was arguably losing that fight after the first round.
Alex, that's not a bad win for her. You know what I mean? I mean, is Alex something like 5 wins, 3 losses, something like something?
I think she's 5-5 now.
5-5, okay. So she, it's once again going back to like being fair. I think that was a fair first fight. I think this is a
logical step forward.
A logical step forward. Maybe too much of a step forward, but how much do you carry someone? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She. I mean, for all we know, she might be actually wanting this challenge.
And focusing on her opponent, Montana De La Rosa. Now, there's 2 facts that come to mind when you think of Montana. First is that she is part of the only husband and wife couple in the UFC.
Yeah.
Her husband, Mark, competes in the bantamweight division. And also, I just found this out a couple of days ago, she holds the record for the fastest win in UFC women's flyweight history.
Right.
I mean, it was 2 minutes and the division's still quite young, but that's still something to...
It is. It's certainly, like I say, how long she'll keep that record for, but if she had the record at some point, that'll do, won't it? Yeah. She's, like I say, she's been active, hasn't she, in the last 4 years?
14 fights.
14 fights. So yeah, good enough for the lass, I think it's maybe not a main card worthy, but it's a sensible.
It's going to be
fight.
Interesting.
Yes, an interesting fight, definitely. And I would like to say, I think I would tend to go with De La Rosa, but that's only because I haven't seen enough of the same.
And I think as well, if you are a female flyweight right now, this is the opportunity to make a big name for yourself, because this is still a young division.
Definitely.
Arguably still a weak division.
You can make your name quicker now. You'll only need 1 or 2 fights and you could be, depending on who you fight and win, arguably a title contender.
Well, look at Jessica Rai.
Yeah.
Jessica Rai, who was, 1-5 at bantamweight, moves down to flyweight, and she's going to be fighting Valentina next.
Yeah, I definitely I think you're right. This is the seize the moment. If you're that weight.
I just think I saw too many holes in Kassam up against Alex Chambers that I just can't see her getting the win this time.
No, and with her being unbeaten, when people say it, sometimes it annoys me this, but it is true. You learn more from a loss.
Yes.
And I think she's 5-0. I think she'd had a few amateur fights as well, and I think she was 2-0 as an amateur. I think she'll be on top of the game, and I think she might need a loss to get them out of a game and bad habits out of a game. So yes, I don't think she'll have massively improved since the win. So yes, I would have to go with De La Rosa for this.
I'm going to go De La Rosa, and I'm going to put my neck out on the line. I think De La Rosa might submit her.
I don't know what the outcome. I'll go for decision. I think it'll be a dominant all three rounds win though.
For De La Rosa?
Yes.
Yeah. So we move on to our next fight, and we are going up to the bantamweight division, and it's Rani Yahya, bit of a veteran in the sport now, 26-9 record, and he's taking on another prospect, Ricky Simon, 10-1. We have to talk about Rani Yahya though, because this guy has been around for donkey's years, WEC veteran.
Yeah, and yes. I thought that my notes said WEC 1 there, but I misread that. But yes, he's got. I mean, that's what's that in total? 35 professional fights. There's not much Ricky's going to be able to take to the cage that he hasn't already seen, if you like. But it's an interesting one, and this is probably the best so far on this main card.
Yes.
And probably a worthy fight for the main card as well. An interesting fight.
Of course, the big weapon when it comes to Yahya is his submissions. 20 wins by subs, 0 by knockout. So
6 decisions.
6 decisions as well.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating that we have such a... It's almost like Maia, like Damian Maia as well, where you know somebody is so dominant in one area of the field. It must be hard for someone like Simone to prepare for that.
Oh, I would go the opposite. because I would be more frightened with a 26-win fighter if he'd had 13 submissions and 13 knockouts. I think someone's maybe more frightening with like a 90% game of jiu-jitsu and a 90% game of striking, as in like that, rather than 100% jiu-jitsu. And not, I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad striker or anything like that, but I think I would definitely be more frightened if he'd had half knockouts, half submissions, rather than all submissions.
I just always believe that if you're a striker and you're taking on somebody with such a grappling prowess, you become more paranoid about preventing the takedown, that you can't focus on your own game.
That's 1,000,000% true. That's absolutely because you then commit.
Yes.
Because by committing is when you're most vulnerable for the takedown. So yeah, but that's MMA, isn't it? That's why it's the most exciting sport in the world.
Yep. With Simone as well, speaking of exciting sport, I rate Ricky Simone quite highly. I watched his debut when he fought Dvalishvili, which was a fight he was arguably losing. Got a submission, many say after the bell, because the klaxon actually went to end the fight. They realised Dvalishvili was out from the chokehold and then gave the fight to Simone. So it was a bit of a controversial win, but he answered a lot of his critics against Montel Jackson. Again, this is one of those situations where you question whether or not this fight is too big for him, because this is still his third UFC fight.
Yeah.
But the tools are there.
The tools are definitely there, and like I say, he's got good takedown defense. It's one of them, you know. It's I don't know who. Like I say, we seem going round about. We always say about this. We don't know, because some people at 10 wins, 1 loss, and only the third fight in the UFC, they're getting a lot more looked after. Some even get chucked even higher than this. I don't think he's out of reach with this fight, and it's a fight that'll put him in. It'll fight him that'll put him in the rankings.
And of course, someone like Yaha, who has that sort of pedigree about him, it's a name as well.
At the end of the day, why fight 3 people to get into the top 15 when you can fight 1 person, beat them and get in the top 15? It's a bit of a shortcut, really. You know what I mean? You don't know how long your career is going to last. So without going into the deep end too much, you're pushing yourself. I think you can only do, as long as you're not way out your depth. I don't think you can do wrong by fighting someone better than you, really. I'd rather be an underdog.
Yeah. And bantamweight as well is a division which is getting really exciting recently.
Yeah. It's always, like I say, I think it's a stacked division, really. And it's a shame, because when you're that good, you sometimes not necessarily nowhere near a title fight, and you get some weights, you have 1 or 2 wins and you're in contention. It's just the luck of the draw, and it swings and roundabouts. You know, in about 4 or 5 years' time, the bantamweight division might be poor, and the poorer division now, it just goes in roundabouts. It always does.
Where do you stand on the winner of this fight?
Has Simone got more to answer? More to grip, up and coming, young, more hungry, more desire.
I just start to think that Yaha has started to reach that stage of his career where he's starting to be a bit on the decline.
Yeah, I agree, but maybe not enough. I'm really on the fence for this one. Yaha, I want to say Yaha, but I want to say Ricky. I think this fight. I think this is the type of fight that maybe could have, unless we've seen it here as I stand. These two could have 2 fights in 1-on-1.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go for Simone. It's just
something good.
Something, and especially like you say, maybe on the bit of a decline. Not a total decline.
Oh no.
But he's done everything he can do. There's nothing more we can say of him different. And I think when you're going back to statistics of him having the 20 submissions, I think he's not where you can read him like a book. But I think if you're watching them same time, yeah. I think he could get caught out.
I'm going to say Simone, and I think accumulation of strikes maybe ends it in the 3rd.
Yeah. Like I say, defensive takedown. I think at one point he will get in the body's back.
Yes.
He'll get took down. Maybe later on in the 1st and 2nd round, so he'll have time to get back up. The bell to go. I
can definitely see Rani winning at least 1 round.
Yeah. and like I say, and then maybe getting tired, someone getting frustrated, someone catching, maybe finishing the fight later on, like I say, towards the end of the third round.
Now, I just want to use this opportunity as well to encourage people to subscribe to our Patreon page, patreon.com/It's Not Cagefighting. We're hoping to try and expand this channel over the next couple of months, and any sort of investment that you can make into the channel will go a long way to doing so. So I'd like to just put that out to you. Thank you very much for all the support. 15,000 subscribers on this channel. So, and this was just something which we started as just like a part-time hobby. So it's grown far bigger than I expected. You might notice we have sort of been glossing over some of the main card fights here. That's so we can talk in more detail about our main and our co-main, because these are two eagerly anticipated fights. These are essentially selling the card.
Yeah, definitely. And talking about not going on, I think from a viewer point, I don't think people like us to go on too much about one fight. I think you just get to the point, and you're predicting. But yes, you're right. Co-main and main event, definitely. Anderson Silva, still probably one of my all-time favourites.
Yes.
And we discussed this before we went live, but no matter what happens to this man, I just want him to keep winning. I keep remembering him as a champion, and where he was unbeatable, untouchable. A lot of people, when they're on top of the game, they want to see them get beat. This was one man I never wanted to see get beat. I just wanted him to keep. Do you know what I mean? Don't you? When someone's winning, you think, "Oh, I'm sick of him being top now. I want someone to come." I never ever wanted this man to get beat. I loved it. I wanted him to retire. Obviously, I know he'd got beat previous to that. I mean, I've seen him live maybe 8 times down at Cage Rage at Wembley before he went to UFC. And he's a great fighter, but I just wanted him to retire and never. Well, after he won the title, I never wanted to see him ever get beat, but unfortunately it happened.
And I think if you need an indicator of just how long Anderson's been in the sport, the UFC always upload a free fight before pay-per-view to try and sell the main card fighters a little bit. So like Adesanya has his fight against Derek Brunson and Whittaker against Romero. Anderson's was his Rich Franklin fight. That was 2006.
2006 it was. It was his second. I think he beat Chris Laver in his first fight, and then Rich Franklin. I only got his autograph, however, 1 month before when he was Cage Rage World Champion. And like I say, he fought Chris Laver. I think it was one of the fight nights. I think he beat him in something like 59 seconds. And it was like, and then when he fought, and do you know when he fought? Even though he was a world champion Cage Rage, UFC was, it still is the best. And when he got the title fight, you know, and you just think, they're giving him that too early. Like that's far too early to be giving the man like a world title fight for the UFC. And then after that, the rest was just history. You know where it went from there. He was literally unbeatable.
Of course, that was a much younger Anderson.
Yes.
Yes. I hate to say it, Father Time is unbeaten against everyone in the world. So
I think I'm a bit half worried because I don't think he was overly impressive his last fight, even though he got the win. I actually thought with that win he might have retired and said, look, because I think you retire on a win, but I think then when you win, you think, well, I've still got a bit more left in us. 2 years ago, would that be?
Yes.
So I don't know what the crack is, but I think fighters, you can't. It doesn't leave you. You know what I mean? If he's injury free.
He still seems in really good health for a 43-year-old.
Yeah, it just worries. He really does worry. I don't want to say the man get hurt. He's a legend. I'm not saying he's going to get hurt. I'm just saying I don't like to say them if 10 years ago this fight wouldn't have even. Do you know what I mean? It wouldn't have bothered one bit. I'd have predicted it right now, Anderson first round. But I don't know anymore.
I think one of the big appeals going into this fight, in terms of Anderson's perspective, is every time Anderson's fought somebody in the UFC, he's always had the advantage when it comes to striking.
Yes.
This time, though, this is the first time he's gone into a fight with somebody thinking he's a better striker than what you are.
However, Anderson's phenomenal on the floor.
Exactly.
People don't. What it is, every fight starts stood up, as obviously common knowledge. Anderson never got a chance sometimes to do his submissions because he finished them stood up, and he was he was an entertainer. He's a born entertainer. I mean, what he did to what was it, Forrest Griffin? I mean, that was just unbelievable. You know what I mean? And like I say, but if he's a very wise and intelligent man. If he knows he's not gonna for the sake of the fight fans. If he thinks, okay, I can win this fight to the floor. Surely at his age, he will be taking this fight to the floor.
You touched on something which I've been mentioning on a lot of forums there. People think this is going to be a stand-up fight. I wouldn't be surprised if Anderson tries to wrestle him.
I hope he does. I hope he does. And you know, it'd be nice. It would be nice for the other fans to go, "Oh, Anderson's really good." you know, you're not just a world champion for that long just because you've got a striking game. Would never have happened. Okay, the reason people didn't always try and get him to the floor as much or thing is because they also knew if they got him to the floor, it would be just as much of a hard fight as it would stood up. You know what I mean?
Chael Sonnen found that out.
Yeah, he's the man's incredible, both stood up and on the floor. You know what I mean? Or he was.
We have to talk about his opponent though. A lot of people who think that this guy is the new Anderson, Israel Adesanya. Now, it took me a long time to get on the Adesanya hype train.
Yes.
I saw that fight against Marvin Vettori. I didn't think he looked all that convincing, but his performances against Tavares and especially against Derek Brunson has started to win me over.
But he's not just MMA either, this man.
No.
He's not just 15 fights in MMA. He's had however many kickboxing fights, and I also believe he was a professional boxer. So the man's been around the blood. How much more improvement he's got stood up from the last time you've seen him, it'll be nothing. I don't think you can improve his stand-up anymore now. As an all-round fighter, I'm imagining he'll be improving all the time. I mean, what's this lad's ground? What's his ground game going to be like to compare to Anderson's?
Well, I mentioned before against Vettori. Vettori managed to get him down a couple of times, and Adesanya looked clueless.
If that's the case, I think if that was still the case now, Israel might be thinking, you know, this is good. He might be like a lot of the fight fans. He might be thinking this is a perfect fight for him because he's going to go out there, strike toe to toe with Anderson, and get the win. I think Anderson will be thinking different to this, and I think that might just really put pressure on and hopefully get Anderson the win.
My one worry when it comes to Anderson, though, and again, it comes down to the age, because if there's any Americans listening to this, and I do apologise, I'm going to go on a British-centric tangent, but I follow Formula 1, and I remember when Michael Schumacher came back with Mercedes, and I think he was, 41, 42, the physique was still there, the talent was still there, but the reflexes weren't.
No, but Anderson Silva won't have them reflexes. And I can guarantee that, you know what I mean? His timing won't be there for his timing for a takedown, his timing to counter a strike, to everything. Anderson, I'm gonna go from the fighter that we knew and loved, who was a world champion at the time. So maybe even just say 4 or 5 years ago, I think Anderson Silva might only be 70% of that man. I would go for. I don't think he's below and say he's half the man, because he's not, and he'll still have it up here. But like you say, also 2 years off won't have done much good. You know what I mean? And you've got to think of all the fight camps he's had, and it's got to have took its toll. You know what I mean? It's not just he's not just the 42 professional bouts he's had, the 42 fight camps he's had over the years. Anderson was also a professional boxer. He didn't have many. I think maybe he only had 2 or 3 professional boxing fights. But still, all the fight camps and everything else he's done over the years, it's got to have took its toll. I think the 43-year-olds that are good fighters now is because they didn't start fighting until they were 30, and they've only actually been fighting for 13 years. Like you say, Anderson Silva got in the UFC 13 years ago, when after he'd already had a phenomenal career in Europe and Brazil. You know what I mean? So I think if he got this win, I think it would be time for him to retire.
Yeah. Do you think he will retire?
Probably not. No, I think a fighter are very stubborn. I think if they get beat, they don't want to retire on a loss, and if they win, they think, I've won, so I can still do this. You know what I mean? So no, I don't think he would win. I think the only way, retire. I think the only way he would retire maybe is if he won, but he got severely hurt as well.
Yeah. I think this is going to be Anderson's last fight. I think Adesanya wins. I think Anderson puts in a brave performance but comes up short.
Well, going off the complete fight scene a bit here, I think Anderson will want to retire in Brazil.
And we've got a Brazilian card coming up in May.
I do believe that. I mean, I was going to say this is going to be a warm-up, but it's a pretty bad warm-up fight for him, isn't it? Or potentially. Yeah. Potentially. Has Anderson ever fought in Australia?
I'm trying to work this out on top of my head.
I don't think he has.
I don't think he has in the UFC.
So maybe he's always wanted to fight in Australia. You know what I mean? Because he was fighting all over the world at one point. I mean, he was on the first Dubai card and everything else. So I don't know. I just haven't even been good. I think if Anderson was ready to retire, his last fight would have been his retirement fight. To have now 2 years off and come back, I don't think you have 2 years off to come back to have a retirement fight. I just think he's aiming for something. I think he's fighting early on in the year as well. I think he's wanting something more like you say, maybe get on the Brazil card. You know what I mean? I don't know. Only he know that.
Nice, easy, winnable fights like a Uriah Hall or someone like that.
Yeah, I think this is a hard fight. I don't think Anderson at any age though will duck anyone.
No.
At any age, at 53, he probably would still be wanting to fight anyone. But
well, don't say that. Oscar De La Hoya will book that fight.
I know.
Your predictions for this one, Tim?
Got to go with Anderson, just out of loyalty and
submission,
respect.
Knockout.
I don't think he'll go the distance, no matter if there's any result. I'm not going to go for a second round submission. What I was going to go for, I'm going to go for a first round.
Oh.
I'm going to go for a first round, and I think if I'm wrong, Anderson is not finished, but that's the thing. I think Anderson may shock me and other people. I think he's not going to go for the strike up. I think he'll obviously come out with an exchange and then shoot on some form of takedown. And I think on the floor, I think he'll shock everyone, including his opponent. And I think there might be some sort of arm triangle or something in there.
I think I'm very similar to you. I think that Anderson will start the fight stronger, maybe score a takedown, win the first round. From the second round onwards, I can see Adesanya taking control.
I could. That's why I'm going for a first round submission. And hopefully that's the end of that.
Clever. I like it.
Finish him.
So we move on to the main event. And of course, it is an Australian in the main event, as it has to be in Australia, really.
Yeah, definitely.
It's Robert Whittaker taking on Kelvin Gastelum for the middleweight title. Now, Whittaker wanted to try and defend his belt on the last Australian pay-per-view, which was 221. He was booked to fight Luke Rockhold. Unfortunately, he had to pull out due to injury. He always said he wanted to do this fight, so it's now taking place 1 year later. I mean, it's going to be a very compelling fight. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that see this as a bit of a mismatch, but I think Kelvin's got a lot of tools which could cause
upset.
Yes.
Yeah. I can say why Whittaker's obviously wanted the fight in Australia while he's got the title. Obviously. Yes, I think it's going to be an interesting fight, and then, like I say, Whittaker. What about his chin? What is he going to be? Is he going to take it? Kelvin's a strong man.
Yes,
Kelvin's a very strong man. I think Whittaker is a better all rounder though.
Yes,
you know what I mean. I think it is quite a close fight, and like going back to the Anderson days where you were 90% sure Anderson was going to win the fight. Yeah. When in a lot of his title defenses, this one here is quite more closer to a 50-50 fight, if anything, which realistically is what you want. You look, I love boxing. I come from a boxing background, but when you look at boxers defending the world titles, you can almost know who's going to win the fight. Generally, what you do in boxing, you're actually predicting the round, not who's going to win. You know who's going to win. You know what I mean? This fight here is a world title fight. This is what it should be. No matter of how good they are, or whether they're as good as the old champions, it's the fact of being like a perfect match, if you like. And I think it is a close. This is going to be a close fight over 5 rounds as well.
When we talk about Whittaker, though, I personally think he is the most underrated champion in the UFC, because here we have a guy who's had a fantastic winning streak. You look at some of the names he's beaten as well.
So what do you think he has to do to get to? Some people will never ever win over an audience, no matter what they do.
And I think that's sort of the issue, is that we're sort of living this sort of almost WWE-esque era of the UFC where everybody has to be a big extravagant personality.
It's getting boring now.
We just have the nice Australian guy.
He's now one of a kind now.
Yes.
That, you know what I mean? It's scary. It's, I like the bit of a trash talk, but not every time you say it.
No.
I now don't watch any wanes because of it. Because everybody has to come out storming about, trash talking, and just think, when you used to have a fight card and one of them used to do it, you would look forward to that. But when everyone's doing it, it's nice to see just a genuine man.
And when it's so obvious, like a Colby Covington.
Yeah, it's silly. It is getting silly. And to be honest with you, I think actually someone, for all this sounds a bit pathetic because they're grown men, someone actually needs to do something about it and actually stop them doing it because it's embarrassing.
But the worst part is you have someone like Dana who seems to be embracing
loving it.
that.
He's loving it. They're loving it. But you've got to get. It's getting sickening. It's brilliant. It is brilliant when you've got a comedian, or like of some sort, and like a funny man. But not when it's everyone.
Yeah.
It's sort of like it's boring. Really, it's repetitive.
What would you say are Whittaker's key strengths as a fighter?
Whittaker's. I mean, he's a perfect. He's a perfect all rounder. Really, would you say? He mixes it up. Whittaker. I think obviously the Kelvin's more of a striker. I think for this fight in particular, I think Whittaker will try and close the distance, wrestle him out, and take the fight to the floor.
The other big question, you sort of touched on it as well, was you've got to wonder how much toll has Whittaker taken in those two fights with Romero.
This is another reason. Do you think he'll try and get to the clinch?
I've never known Whittaker to be that much of a grappler.
But for Kelvin and
Yeah.
the fight and his previous two fights, it might make sense. At this level now in MMA, if any time, you can do everything. You know what I mean? And like going back to the Anderson fight, for all Anderson's more of a striker, he's still got a grappling game. You know. I think you have to go with the other person's weakness. Sometimes,
and that's always been Kelvin's weaknesses, especially in middleweight, is when in the stand-up, I think he can hold his own. And you look at the amount of people he's been knocking out.
Yeah.
But we saw in the Chris Weidman fight, he got taken down in that fight, and he had no answer.
But the secret is to get Kelvin early on. There's no point taking a big shot of him, not knowing where you are, then deciding to take him down. I think the game plan would be trying to take him down before he did any damage. And
I do like Kelvin Gastelum as well because, again, you look at some of the people he's been beating since he moved up to middleweight. He beat Tim Kennedy, Vitor Belfort, Michael Bisping, Jacare as well. That Jacare performance was brilliant.
This could be an upset, potentially an upset. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's a bit of a one to call. Like I think they've all been a bit tight to call today, really. But I think you're looking at a bit of a, like you say, Robert. Maybe not what I'm saying isn't his strength, but I also think if I was Robert or I was his coach, I think that would be the potential way of looking about the fight. I don't know what the training's going like, but prevention's better than cure, and I think preventing Kelvin from catching him would be to close in. And
I've just got this. All my logic thinks that Whittaker's going to win this fight. You look, I think he's got more experience at this weight class. He's got more tools at his disposal. He's going to be throwing a lot of kicks. I've just got this feeling that Kelvin's going to crack him. I've seen those two wars that...
If Whittaker does what you say, and he sort of just keeps him at bay and kicks, Kelvin's got 5 rounds, 25 minutes to catch him, and I do believe he will catch him and potentially knock him out. I do think Whittaker needs to have a different game plan for this fight.
I mean, this is a Whittaker which has gone 10 rounds with Yoel Romero, been rocked twice in both those fights.
But will they look back? Do they look back at that and go, okay, we need to improve on this, or do they look back and go, well, he can do it. He can ride the storm, weather the storm even.
And once your chin goes in this sport, I mean, Chuck found that out.
Once you get knocked out the once, I think certain things, elements of you, the more you do, the more durable you get. Your chin's the opposite. The more it gets hit, the less durable it becomes.
So I'm going to be going against the odd makers. I think that Kelvin Gastelum first round knockout.
Whew, first round knockout.
The longer this fight goes, the more it favours Whittaker. Whittaker is never going to tire.
No, I think Whittaker will change his fighting style since his last outcome, and I think Whittaker will spoil this fight, and I think Whittaker will grind out a decision, but it'll not be comfortable, and I think his fighting style will be a bit different for it.
So for all the criticisms that UFC 234 has faced, two very compelling matchups at the end there.
There'll be a lot of people buying tickets for this fight or paying for the pay-per-view to just watch them two fights.
Do you think it breaks 100k?
Possibly not. Do you? Unless people are thinking a bit like you, is it Anderson Silva's last fight?
I'm going to go around 130, 140. But I mean, 224, I think that was the first show that we covered. That didn't break 100k, and that was still an amazing card.
Yeah, I think going back, I know keep going. Anderson's a big draw, especially him not fighting in 2 years, and he was and like I say, Whittaker and Kelvin's are quite a close fight. So yeah, you might break 100, but I don't think it'll be much past it if so.
But we have got 235 just around the corner, which will more than make up for that.
Definitely.
And any early predictions for that one?
No, not just yet. We'll wait for me, you and Max to get that.
Yep, and Max is definitely looking forward to that one. He has been messaging me about that. That is all the time that we have though for the 234 preview show. I hope you've enjoyed it. You've been watching INC. I've been Karl. That's been Tim.
Thank you.
And Tim as well, you also have your own big matchup coming up.
Yes, two weeks yesterday, fighting Gabriel Conti from Italy, from Team Gregor, coming to my hometown, spending my way. So let's see how that one goes. Welterweight matchup, and then see what brings me for the rest of the year. Hopefully some big news.
Certainly so. So we'll have to wish Tim all the best. Thank you very much for watching the show, and we hope to see from you again for UFC 235. Bye bye for now.
Bye bye.